Today, we are talking all things Versailles. And look, we're going to go way beyond just the gold and the glamour. We're going to see it for what it really was, this incredible symbol of absolute power, a surprisingly bold economic weapon, and, believe it or not, a stage where the entire course of modern history was rewritten. So let me just start with this question. What if a room could actually wage a war? It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, right? But deep inside Versailles, there's this one glittering hall that did exactly that. It kicked off an economic war against a whole other empire. And then, get this, it became the very spot where a world war officially came to an end. All right, so how did this global icon even happen? You might be surprised to hear that its beginnings were, well, pretty humble. We're going to start our story way back when Versailles was just a simple little getaway for the king. I mean, the change is just, wow. It's staggering. So you start with Louis XIII's Little Lodge from 1624. It's basically a simple brick and stone place to go hunting, an escape from Paris. But then his son, Louis XIV, the Sun King, he comes along. And from 1661, he has a totally different vision. He turns it into this jaw-dropping symbol of absolute power. This wasn't just a palace, it was the new center of the entire French government, absolutely dripping in marble, bronze, and gold. And listen, this was so much more than just building a big fancy house. This quote here really nails it. Versailles was a whole landscape of power. Every single thing, every statue, every fountain, every single hallway, it was all a carefully calculated message that screamed, "The king is in charge and no one can touch him." Okay, now for probably the most famous room in the entire palace. But we're going to look at it in a new way. It's not just a pretty gallery, it was a weapon of light, of luxury, and of some seriously smart political strategy. Just try to picture this, 357 mirrors lining a hall that's 73 meters long. Today, we don't even think about mirrors, right? They're everywhere. But back in the 17th century, this was an absolutely insane display of wealth. It was just unimaginable. So, when it was finally finished in 1684, this hall was basically the grand finale of Louis XIV's big plan. He wanted to make France the top dog in Europe, period. And not just with his army, but by showing everyone that France was the absolute peak of art and style. Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. The mirrors weren't just for show, they were an act of economic warfare. See, back then, Venice had a total monopoly on making high-quality mirrors, and they guarded that secret like crazy. So to break their hold, Louis XIV set up his own royal glassworks. How? By basically stealing their best artisans. He secretly recruited them, and these guys were literally risking assassination for leaving Venice. All of this just to prove that France could do it bigger and better than anyone else. And here is something that will absolutely blow your mind. Before Versailles, what did people see when they looked for their reflection? Maybe a blurry shape in polished metal or a ripple in murky water? That was it. So for tons of people walking into the Hall of Mirrors, it was the first time in their entire lives that they saw a clear, full-length reflection of themselves. Can you just imagine that moment? Seeing you for the first time, all while standing in a room designed to make you feel tiny next to the king's immense power? It's just incredible. All right, let's head outside. Because this whole projection of power, it didn't just stop at the palace walls. Oh no, the gardens were just as crucial. They were a massive statement, meant to show everyone that the king's power could control nature itself. Just look at that perfect, almost unreal symmetry. It's called the grand perspective. It's a visual line that stretches perfectly straight for miles, all the way to the horizon. The designer, André Nôtre, was sending a very, very clear message. The king brings order to France, and he can bring that same perfect, rational order to the wildness of nature. And the numbers behind all this are just mind-boggling. We're talking 800 hectares of land, all of it perfectly sculpted. It took 35 kilometers of pipes just to get water to 55 major fountains. This thing wasn't just a garden, it was a monster of an engineering project. But as you can imagine, getting all that water to the fountains was a huge headache. A royal headache, you could say. They built everything they could think of. Windmills, pumps powered by horses, even this colossal thing called the Machine de Marly, which was like the high-tech wonder of its day. But here's the crazy part. Even with all of that, it was never enough water. So they had to cheat. They came up with this brilliant little trick where the fountain operators would use whistles to signal each other. As the king's group got close, whoosh, they'd turn the fountains on. The second he passed, they'd turn them right back off. It was all about keeping up the illusion of endless water and endless power. Okay, so the story of Versailles as a symbol of power doesn't end when the French monarchy does. Far from it. It actually makes a huge comeback in the 20th century. It becomes the very stage where the fate of modern Europe gets decided. You just can't make this stuff up. The historical irony here is just incredible. So in 1871, Germany defeats France. And where did they decide to proclaim the new German Empire? Right here, in the Hall of Mirrors. It was the ultimate slap in the face, a total humiliation for the French. Now, let's fast forward to 1919. World War I is over, and where is a defeated Germany forced to sign the peace treaty? In the very same room. It was a complete, 100% deliberate reversal of fortune. And believe me, this was no coincidence. The French Prime Minister at the time, Georges Clemenceau, he was a young man back in 1871. He saw that humiliation happen with his own eyes, and you better believe he never forgot it. He was the one who personally insisted that the treaty be signed right there, to give France its symbolic revenge. So we've seen how Versailles is this massive symbol, this stage for history. But what if all this talk has you wanting to see it for yourself? Well, I've got a couple of quick insider tips that will totally change your visit. First off, timing is absolutely everything. If you hate crowds, and who doesn't, you've got 3 good options. Get there for the first entry at 9 a.m., sneak in during the lunchtime lull between 1 and 2 p.m., or go late after 4:30 to catch that amazing golden hour light in the gardens. Okay, but you want the ultimate pro tip? The one that will let you get the Hall of Mirrors all to yourself? Here's the plan. Book that 9 a.m. ticket, but do it way in advance. Get to the main gate by 8 a.m. because it opens before the palace itself. You want to be in that security line by 8:30. As soon as you're through, don't look at anything else. Just walk straight across the courtyard, get inside, and power walk directly through the king's apartments. I promise you will walk right into an empty Hall of Mirrors. You'll get 5, maybe 7 absolutely magical minutes in there before the chaos begins. And that feeling, that's really the enduring power of Versailles, isn't it? It was built for one reason, to awe and intimidate anyone who saw it. But when you stand there today, you might feel something totally different. Maybe it's inspiration. Maybe it's just pure wonder. Or maybe it makes you think about what all that extravagance really means. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What does this incredible landscape of power make you feel?